in addition to the amazing models and the narrative. Pacific Rim Extinction, what it's captured for me as a wargamer is the sheer scale. The miniatures are not standard scale. They're this heroic scale. They're pre-painted. They look fantastic. And based on the precision of the movement, it's a hex-based movement. There's action points to pivot and turn, which happens at different phases. And you have cards that can activate different abilities, whether you're playing the Jaeger or the Kaiju. What I find very, very interesting is it really feels like you're piloting, fighting, or your avatar on the table with the Kaiju. The sheer scope and size of these massive models, just how big they are, they move fast, but they're very ponderous. It's a very, very unique feel to the game. And how that translates over in terms of facing and how damage is dealt, movement is so important. Facing is so important. And we don't always see this in a lot of war games, a lot of modern type war games. The idea is the model is really just placeholders, and it'll have a 360 degree fire of radius to represent the unit and its ability to turn and duck and move. We tend to see this more, this Pacific Rim Extinction model. We see this a little bit more with Armada or space combat games. My space cruiser is facing forward, but my weapons batteries are on the side for broadsides. Well, I need to hit you broadsides. My torpedo launcher or missile launcher is facing forward, so I could hit you forward with that. Facing becomes very, very important. So you learn very fast in Pacific Rim Extinction to look and figure out facing, movement, and how it works. That's going to push into this Tactica podcast, and I'm pushing up Pacific Rim content to my YouTube channel here, and I hope that you look at the game. It's very, very dynamic, a lot of fun. Wave 2 is dropping. Movement and facing and being able to attack from behind is so important. One of the skills that you want to master, yes, like any war game, it's got combos. You have power cards to play, being in the right place, playing 2 cards, the synergy of certain units where if one unit activates, another unit can activate, they can attack together. I mean, that's standard kind of miniature wargaming stuff. But the rear arc, attacking from the rear, is huge. And here's why. Essentially, it's a dice-off system. So every model is going to have an attack that's modified by abilities, a base attack modified by abilities, and you're going to roll a certain amount of dice. A defender is going to have a defensive value, possibly boosted by some abilities, and they're going to roll a set of dice. And you kind of check back and forth with a difference in dice depending on the spread of the difference in the favor of the attacker causing damage. There's the mechanic of exploding dice, which I happen to enjoy because exploding dice means you have a base range, but if you roll a 6, or in this case a Pacific Rim, a special symbol, you get to roll another die. What this means is things become a little bit unpredictable. It's not like the standard D6 where you know, okay, 1 to 6, and it's probably going to be a 3 or a 4. But this, even if you have an ability, play this card, you get a +1. So it's really 2 to 7 or 6 +1 with a modification. The exploding dice, that could make things very dangerous depending on the dice, and especially if you have a special ability that allows you rerolls and manipulations. So you need to be a little more cautious because you never know what's really going to happen. But as soon as you, the mechanic of the exploding dice, where on average you're going to get maybe 2 or 3. You're also going to get this idea of triggers, where you can utilize the rolled dice if they have a trigger symbol to activate certain things. You're going to get a couple of those also to possibly generate abilities or possibly generate additional dice. Attacking from behind, but essentially it's still I have to beat your rating by a certain amount. As soon as you attack from behind, going back to the ponderous movement of these machines and these monsters, yes, they move fast, but they're so massive, whether they're mechanical or bio, getting behind and attacking is huge because you're going to cut down on the potential defensive dice and the resistance dice. This becomes really deadly for some of the Jaegers. If you can get from behind and attack them, their defensive value drops a lot. You're just going to destroy them. You're just going to chew through them. And for some of the more powerful kaiju, although it is harder, I find, to get behind the kaiju because they have it's easier for them to pivot. It's a hex system. It's easier for them to pivot and try to keep you forward facing. But some of the kaiju are so powerful, even if you're jacked up and even if you're attacking with two Jaegers, they have the armor. Thinking of Hakuju and a few others, they have the armor to withstand that. And it's essentially going to be a dice off. I'd rather not dice off if I can. Getting behind some of the more powerful kaiju at least brings them down to a point with the reduction that they're a little bit more vulnerable. But it's been very, very interesting because many of the war games that I play, the facing of the unit, the facing of the model is considered 360, is considered total. Even a system like BattleTech, where the mech has a facing, and if it's outside that facing arc, depending on the location of the weapon, it can't fire. But even in BattleTech, the mechs are pretty dynamic. I can spend movement points ahead of time based on initiative to face a target, or at least to have one or two target choices. I could pivot my torso. Movement is still important in BattleTech, but it's not make or break. The only real war game that I've played outside of Firestorm Armada and other systems that my friends enjoy is in looking at Chain of Command World War II. While the infantry have that 360, tanks are very, very defined with their firing arcs and the turret. And is it a turret mounted? Is it fixed? Is it in a ball turret if it's a machine gun? Facing becomes vital. And from the perspective of Pacific Rim, I'm really enjoying that precision and to be challenged with that precision and see how it works.